The Middle Ages, a time when knights swung their swords and secrets hid in the shadows of towering castles. But this history isn't limited to war and politics alone. The most hidden, bizarre, and often taboo aspects of human nature were also taking shape during this era. Have you ever wondered what people did in the Middle Ages? Which sexual habits were considered taboo, and what strange rituals were part of everyday life? Amid the strict rules of the church, superstitions, and societal pressure, sexuality sometimes took surprising, sometimes horrifying, and often utterly incomprehensible forms. Masks, secret ceremonies, bizarre treatments, and unexpected desires. Get ready, because now we are about to take you on a journey into the strangest sexual practices of the Middle Ages. In the Middle Ages, sexuality, despite being one of the most natural aspects of human life, was tightly controlled by society and religion. The church not only enforced social order, but also penetrated deep into people's inner lives, asserting control over sexual behavior. Sexual acts were not merely seen as bodily needs. They were considered spiritual tests and societal responsibilities. People lived in a constant state of balance, suppressing their desires to gain social approval and maintain moral integrity. Confession rituals organized by the church lay at the heart of medieval sexual life. People were required not only to admit their sins, but under the guidance of priests, to recount their sexual lives in explicit detail. These sessions could last for hours, with priests probing even the smallest acts, thoughts, or glances that might constitute sin. A young man's secret desire, a woman's illicit fantasy, or even a fleeting glance could be deemed sinful. These confessions forced individuals to confront and suppress their desires, often accompanied by long periods of penance or physical punishment to ensure spiritual purification. Monks and nuns were required to abstain completely from sexual activity. Yet human nature, no matter how suppressed, persisted. Some historical records indicate that clergy would use painful methods to control their sexual urges. Tight belts, constrictive corsets, physical punishment, and painful devices were employed to maintain chastity and spiritual purity. These practices tested personal limits while simultaneously forcing individuals to find creative ways to cope with or express their desires. Sexuality in the Middle Ages was not solely a private matter. It was deeply connected to societal morality and spiritual integrity. Those who sinned sexually endangered not only their own souls, but also the spiritual health of the community. As a result, people had to conceal their desires, satisfying sexual urges only through secret rituals and hidden spaces. In some towns, public festivals provided rare outlets for sexual play and risque humor. Despite strict church oversight, these events persisted, offering a socially sanctioned but secretive escape for repressed desires. Superstitions and medical myths also shaped sexual life. Some communities believed certain sexual behaviors could ward off evil spirits or bring fertility and prosperity. Young couples might perform rituals to enhance fertility, and some families even regarded such practices as essential for conceiving children. Combined with religious pressure and social norms, these beliefs made sexuality simultaneously complex, mysterious, and highly regulated. Despite oppression and fear, people found inventive ways to express their desires. Secret ceremonies, masked games, unusual treatments, and unconventional behaviors became both outlets for sexual gratification and subtle acts of resistance against societal rules. Masked parties, private ritual spaces, and playful public antics allowed individuals to explore desires while navigating social constraints. Sexuality in the Middle Ages was not merely a bodily need, but a spiritual struggle, societal pressure, and cultural performance all at once. People constantly negotiated between suppressing their desires, maintaining spiritual purity, and meeting societal expectations. These strange and intricate practices reveal not only the limits of human nature at the time, but also the medieval perspective on sexuality and the profound impact of societal norms on individual desires. This era also highlights the remarkable variety of ways humans find to express desire. Secret rituals, superstition-driven practices, and inventive solutions show how the Middle Ages attempted to control sexuality while people devised subtle, creative ways to resist that control. In the Middle Ages, medicine was far from the understanding we have today, and many beliefs about sexuality might seem strange to us now. The human body was constantly interpreted through both religious and medical doctrines, and sexuality was often seen as both a dangerous and magical force. People were in a continual quest for balance, suppressing their desires to maintain spiritual health and meet societal expectations. Beliefs about the effects of sperm and semen on human health were widespread. Men believed that the loss of sperm would weaken their physical strength and lead to spiritual imbalance. As a result, they sought various methods to limit sexual activity and preserve their energy. Some medical texts emphasized that men needed to control their desires or risk falling ill. Women faced similar pressures regarding their sexuality. To enhance fertility or prevent illness, they often used herbal concoctions and secret rituals, sometimes considered mandatory by families. Sexually transmitted diseases were among the greatest fears of the era. Yet with modern medicine still undeveloped, people resorted to strange and often dangerous remedies. Herbal ointments, bloodletting, salt baths, potions, and healing sexual rituals were believed to cure illnesses. Some doctors claimed that massaging sexual organs or using mysterious herbal blends could purify the body. These practices often impose both physical and psychological strain, deeply influencing how people approach sexuality. Medieval medicine viewed sexuality not merely as a physical process, but as a matter of spiritual and energetic balance. According to some beliefs, sexual energy that was not properly directed could lead to illness, weakness, and mental collapse. Therefore, people experimented with various methods to suppress or channel their desires. Young people and married couples often followed specific positions during secret rituals to balance their energies. Sometimes these rituals became traditional norms, monitored by families or communities, and failure to observe them could trigger superstitious fears. Medicine also provided social and cultural tools to control sexual desire. Combined with the pressure of the church and societal expectations, medical teachings encourage people either to suppress sexuality or to express it in alternative ways. Secret rituals, special potions, and even erotic practices were sometimes indirectly endorsed or at least tolerated by medical authorities. People used these methods to protect their health while safely satisfying their desires. Some notable examples highlight the intersection of medicine and sexuality. Devices and techniques used by men to control excessive sexual urges might seem incredible today. Women applied herbal mixtures, special baths, or rituals to increase fertility or manage their sexual desires. These practices often carried both physical and psychological aspects, forcing people to view sexuality from multiple perspectives. The relationship between medicine and sexuality in the Middle Ages offers critical insights not only into individual desire, but also into societal control mechanisms and cultural norms. Sexuality was linked not only to pleasure, but also to health, spiritual balance, and social harmony. Despite religious and medical pressures, people used creativity to find ways to express their desires. Viewed from today, Many of these practices may seem bizarre or incomprehensible, yet for medieval people, they were natural parts of daily life. Sexuality created a constant interplay between bodily needs, spiritual equilibrium, social order, and individual desire. The complex system formed by the intersection of medicine, religion, and superstition demonstrates how sexuality in the Middle Ages was both tightly controlled and creatively expressed. People developed extraordinary methods to satisfy suppressed desires, protect themselves from disease, and meet societal expectations, sometimes pushing boundaries, sometimes subtly resisting. In the Middle Ages, sexuality was not merely a bodily need, but also a spiritual struggle and a pursuit of social balance. The intricate web of secret rituals, medical practices, and superstitions provides us with the clearest window into the human nature and understanding of sexuality during this fascinating era. In the Middle Ages, sexuality was not merely a bodily need, it was also a stage for creativity and mysterious rituals. While the church and societal norms strictly constrained sexual desire, people found ways to overcome these restrictions. Masks, secret gatherings, and strange rituals became spaces where desires could be expressed. These practices not only provided erotic pleasure, but also offered subtle forms of resistance against societal pressure. Among the wealthy classes, the use of masks and costumes during sexual entertainments was common. These masks created a safe space by concealing identities while bending the era's rigid taboos. At masked balls, jokes, small games, and sometimes erotic rituals were performed, allowing participants to temporarily escape the strict rules of society. Some historical records indicate that such masked games were carried out both for amusement and for sexual exploration. Among common folk, sexuality was also part of daily life through jokes and playful games. Marketplaces, festivals, and celebrations often included sexualized humor and activities. Though these were often symbolic and discreet, they offered a space for people to express desire and enjoy themselves. The church condemned such behaviors, but they persisted as long-standing popular traditions. Some communities combined sexuality with ritual and magic in search of fertility or healing. Sexual acts performed on specific days or during particular ceremonies were believed to increase fertility, ward off evil spirits, or bring luck to the family. These rituals could be elaborate and strange, requiring precise timing, correct positions, and proper intentions for success. Participants often believed that while satisfying their desires, they were also fulfilling a spiritual duty. Sexual entertainment and secret rituals were sometimes tied to social status and power. Among the nobility, clandestine relationships, mistresses, and even homosexual liaisons, though not officially accepted, were widespread in courts and aristocratic circles. These relationships served both to satisfy desire and to gain political or social advantages. Masks, secret meetings, and symbolic rituals ensured that such affairs could continue safely. Medieval people did not see sexuality solely as personal pleasure. They experienced it culturally, socially, and spiritually. Secret rituals, masks, and playful acts were tools to express desire and escape societal pressures. By creatively fulfilling their urges, people also navigated social norms, tested boundaries, and carved out their own private worlds. During this era, sexuality was not just a physical act, but also a psychological game, a cultural performance, and a form of resistance against societal norms. People constantly negotiated between suppressing desire and meeting social expectations, using secret rituals and inventive methods to maintain this balance. The strangest sexual practices of the Middle Ages reveal not only human desire, but also the creativity and imagination people employed in the face of social constraints. In the Middle Ages, marriage and love were understood very differently from how we see them today. While modern love is often viewed as an emotional bond and a romantic choice, Marriages in that era were largely shaped by economic, social, and political considerations. Families arranged unions based on inheritance, land, and social status, often placing individual desires and romantic feelings in the background. Yet this did not completely eliminate human sexual desire or romantic imagination. People sought ways to satisfy their needs while still adhering to societal expectations. The sexual life of married couples was often seen as a duty and a social responsibility. The strict rules of the church and prevailing superstitions limited sexuality primarily to reproduction. Consequently, in many marriages, sexual activity was performed as a routine obligation, with emotional or romantic fulfillment frequently neglected. Women faced conflicting expectations to be both obedient and desirous, while men were required to control their desires and protect their families. This situation often led couples to experience sexuality through secretive, symbolic, or ritualized means. Fertility held central importance in medieval marriages. Women's sexual activity was largely directed toward childbearing. Some couples used herbal mixtures, special baths, or ritual practices to enhance fertility or ensure a healthy child. These practices allowed sexual desires to be expressed while also providing a sense of spiritual reassurance aligned with prevailing superstitions. In certain regions, sexual rituals performed on specific days or months were believed to improve fertility. Such rituals often followed strict rules. The right time, position, and intention were considered essential for success. Participants believed that in fulfilling their desires, they were simultaneously performing a spiritual duty. Societal pressures further complicated the balance between marriage and love. Women had to navigate maintaining social reputation, satisfying family expectations, and managing sexual desires, while men were tasked with controlling their own urges and safeguarding their wives and households. These pressures often drove couples to experience sexuality through hidden or symbolic practices. For example, some couples expressed their desires through extramarital rituals or secret ceremonies, which also served as small acts of defiance against rigid social norms. Love and romance were often expressed outside official marriages through clandestine relationships and forbidden affairs. Among the aristocracy, secret romantic liaisons, masked meetings, and correspondence between the children of wealthy families were common. These relationships served both to satisfy desire and to gain social or political advantage. Among the general populace, love was expressed through songs, stories, and small rituals. During festivals and celebrations, people could escape societal pressure and explore love and desire in more open and creative ways. The complex interplay of sexuality and love in the Middle Ages was shaped by social and religious pressures. People constantly balanced the suppression of desires with the need to meet societal expectations, using secret rituals and symbolic acts to express their feelings and passions. This demonstrates that love and sexuality were not merely romantic or physical matters, but experiences deeply entwined with social order, spiritual equilibrium, and cultural performance. This strange balance between marriage, love, and sexuality provides a crucial window into the desires and boundaries of medieval people. The expression of repressed urges through secret rituals and symbolic acts reveals the creativity and imagination of the time. Despite societal pressures, people found ways to experience love and desire, sometimes pushing boundaries and sometimes engaging in small acts of resistance. It stands as one of the clearest examples of the complexity of medieval sexual life and the depth of human nature. In the Middle Ages, sexuality was seen not merely as a source of personal pleasure, but as a matter that concerned the entire society. Every action and thought was tightly monitored by social order and religious authority, and sexuality became more than just a source of pleasure. It functioned as a tool of discipline and morality. The concept of sin was one of the most powerful forces shaping medieval sexual behavior. People had to constantly balance the suppression of their desires with gaining the church's approval and maintaining social standing. This pressure deeply affected both their spiritual and social lives. The notion of sin went beyond defining the limits of sexual behavior. It compelled individuals to constantly question themselves and suppress their desires. Not only extramarital relations, but even sexual thoughts, fantasies, and minor urges could be considered sinful. A young woman's secret romantic fantasy, a man's repressed desire, or small fleeting thoughts within marriage could be regarded as serious sins requiring confession before a priest. This dynamic caused people both to suppress their sexuality and to find hidden ways to express it. The Church's oversight positioned sexuality as both a spiritual test and a foundation of social order. Priests and religious leaders closely monitored sexual behavior, keeping sinners under control through confession and penance. People turned to rituals, symbols, and sometimes secret spaces to hide and suppress their desires. The Church's authority permeated every aspect of sexual life, making the expression of desire both fearful and mysterious. Social control was especially pronounced over women. They had to comply with moral codes while preserving social reputation. Married women were expected to regulate their sexual behavior, suppress desire, and meet societal expectations. Men, meanwhile, were responsible for controlling their own desires, protecting their families, and maintaining social order. This constant tension often led individuals to experience sexuality through secret, symbolic, or ritualized means. Sexual taboos shaped not only individuals, but society as a whole. Church rules dictated which relationships were acceptable and which desires were socially forbidden, establishing patterns of behavior. Violating these taboos was seen as both sinful and socially shameful. While guilt and shame ensured suppression, secret rituals, masked games, and symbolic acts allowed for hidden expression of desires. Superstitions, legends, and folk tales also influenced the control of sexuality. Certain behaviors were believed to attract evil spirits, bring misfortune to families, or cause disease. Consequently, people used special rituals and symbols to conceal their desires and adhere to taboos. Masks, secret games, symbolic gestures, and rituals performed on specific days emerged as creative ways to overcome societal pressure. Public festivals, market days, and religious holidays were particularly notable as spaces where sexuality could be secretly expressed. Jokes, masked games, and symbolic rituals at these events allowed people to satisfy their desires safely. Such practices offered both an escape from societal pressure and a demonstration that sexuality could exist despite social rules. In the Middle Ages, sexuality existed in a constant tension between sin, taboos, and social control. People had to balance suppressing their desires with meeting societal expectations. This pressure gave rise to creative solutions, secret rituals, and symbolic games, making sexuality both a dangerous and magical domain. Within this framework of social and religious oversight, people sought ways to satisfy desire while maintaining their spiritual and social identities. Sin, taboos, and societal pressure intertwined the individual and social aspects of sexuality, providing critical insight into the complex sexual world of the Middle Ages. Individuals expressed their desires creatively, developed secret rituals, and tested the boundaries of taboos. In short, sexuality in the Middle Ages was not only a source of personal pleasure, but a complex phenomenon interwoven with social order, morality, spiritual balance, and cultural performance. Taboos and the concept of sin shaped sexual behavior, while secret rituals, symbols, and creative methods served both as outlets for desire and small acts of resistance against societal constraints. This provides a vital window into how medieval people experienced sexuality and how suppression, secrecy, and creative expression were deeply intertwined. The understanding of sexuality in the Middle Ages presents a strange and complex picture when viewed by today's standards. Yet, when placed within the social, cultural, and religious context of the time, it reveals a highly coherent system. Sexuality was not merely a source of personal pleasure, it was closely tied to maintaining social order, spiritual balance, and cultural rituals. Human desires were recognized as a natural force, yet they were strictly regulated by societal and religious rules. The Church shaped behavior through the concept of sin, while taboos created defined spaces where desires could be expressed and boundaries established. Medieval people lived in a world where they had to suppress their desires. Secret rituals, masks, symbolic games, and private ceremonies allowed sexuality to be expressed safely and under control. Masked balls and festivals, for example, created spaces outside of societal norms, enabling individuals to experience their desires privately. Within these events, small rituals and symbolic gestures facilitated the expression of desire while also functioning as a creative form of resistance against social pressures. The suppression of desires led people to develop inventive solutions. Despite social norms and religious rules, they found ways to express their urges. Secret rituals, symbolic games, fertility ceremonies, and private meetings allowed them to explore different aspects of sexuality. Some historical records indicate that small jokes and symbolic gestures performed at masked balls both satisfied desire and acted as subtle forms of defiance against societal constraints. These practices are crucial for understanding both individual and collective sexual life in the period. Sexuality in the Middle Ages was constantly shaped by tension between societal and religious pressures. Sin and taboos defined the boundaries of desire, while secret rituals and symbolic expressions allowed suppressed urges to surface. People had to balance the suppression of desire with the search for creative expression, making sexuality not just a source of pleasure, but also a form of social and cultural equilibrium. In the context of marriage and love, sexuality was similarly tightly controlled. Marriages were often arranged for social and economic reasons, while love and romance were expressed through clandestine relationships, letters, and symbolic rituals. Among the aristocracy, masked meetings, secret ceremonies, and private rituals served to satisfy desire while also providing social or political advantage. Among the common people, love was expressed through songs, stories, and small rituals. Festivals, celebrations, and religious holidays became spaces where sexuality could be experienced secretly and symbolically. One of the most striking aspects of medieval sexuality is the intertwining of desire, suppression, and creative expression. The pressure of the church, societal taboos, and superstitions defined the limits of desire, while secret rituals and symbolic games allowed it to manifest. Masks, symbols, fertility rites, and clandestine meetings not only enabled the expression of desire, but also created a cultural and social playground. This illustrates how medieval people balanced suppressing their urges with finding ways to express them. The legacy of medieval sexuality helps us understand certain social and cultural structures even today. Despite living in a time when desires had to be suppressed, people found creative ways to express them. Sexuality was experienced within a constant balance of social control, spiritual purification, and cultural ritual. Even under pressure, individuals found ways to express themselves creatively, engaging in secret rituals and using symbols to live out their sexuality. In conclusion, medieval sexuality reveals both the complexity of human nature and the emergence of creativity under social and religious pressure. It shows that sexuality was not merely a physical act, but deeply intertwined with social order, spiritual balance, and cultural expression. Even when desires had to be suppressed, people always found ways to express them through secret rituals, symbols, and games. The intricate sexual world of the Middle Ages offers a historical perspective that helps us understand the relationship between sexuality, taboos, and social control in contemporary societies. It demonstrates the constant interplay between human nature, desire, and creativity, showing that suppressed desires always find a way to be expressed, and that these expressions are shaped by social and cultural conditions. In this way, the Middle Ages provide a unique window into understanding the social, cultural, and spiritual dimensions of sexuality. The understanding of sexuality in the Middle Ages, when compared to modern times, appears both repressive and complex, yet the cultural and social legacy of this period has directly influenced the modern world. The suppression, concealment, and symbolic expression of human desires were not merely necessities of that era. They also led to the emergence of creative solutions, rituals, and cultural norms. This offers a valuable perspective for understanding the foundations of contemporary perceptions of sexuality and societal expectations. In the Middle Ages, secret rituals, masked games, and symbolic expressions served as spaces where desires could be safely expressed. Similar dynamics can still be observed in modern society. People continue to find discreet ways to express their desires when faced with social or cultural pressures. Certain traditions, celebrations, or private rituals still create areas where sexuality can exist, despite societal rules. This can be seen as a cultural legacy carried forward from the Middle Ages. Moreover, the sexual taboos and concept of sin in the Middle Ages shaped modern ethical and moral norms. Sexuality was regarded as a tool to maintain social order, and individual behavior was constrained by societal standards. Even today, in some cultures, sexuality remains surrounded by taboos and social oversight, requiring individuals to both suppress and discreetly express their desires. The Middle Ages remind us that sexuality is both a personal and social experience, shaped by cultural conditions. The cultural and societal dimensions of sexuality also paved the way for creative forms of expression. Secret rituals, symbols, and games not only allowed desires to be expressed, but also influenced social and cultural interactions. Medieval symbolic and ritualistic themes remain visible in modern literature, theatre, and art. As people sought ways to express suppressed desires, they developed creative methods that became embedded in cultural memory. Additionally, the legacy of medieval sexuality provides insight into the psychological and social dimensions of human behavior. Suppressed desires, symbolic expressions, and secret rituals highlight the creative and adaptive nature of human beings. Even under pressure and restrictions, people found ways to express their desires, transforming sexuality into not merely a physical act, but also a psychological, social, and cultural phenomenon. In conclusion, the Middle Ages. Understanding of sexuality is not only a historical curiosity, but also a guide for understanding the origins of sexuality, taboos, and mechanisms of social control in modern society. This era demonstrates that even when desires had to be suppressed or concealed, people always found creative ways to express them. Experiencing sexuality through secret rituals, symbols, and games served as an enduring example of balance and creativity at both individual and societal levels. The intricate sexual world of the Middle Ages shows that human nature, desire, and creativity are inseparable. Suppressed desires always find a way to be expressed, and this expression is interwoven with cultural, social, and spiritual dimensions. This legacy is not only historical, it provides an indispensable perspective for understanding the roots of contemporary sexual norms and social behaviors.